Hello, my name is Ashleigh Melchior, and today I will be presenting Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. According to McLeod, Kohlberg's theory of moral development is known as a psychological framework that was developed by Lawrence Kohlberg in the 1950s. It explains how people develop moral thinking or moral reasoning, which is the thinking process behind most of our ethical decisions. This can be seen through a series of 6 different stages. Furthermore, according to Ishnan Joshi, Kohlberg was influenced by John Piaget's work on cognitive development and extended it into the realm of moral understanding. Some key concepts to remember throughout this explanation is that Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory proposes moral development progresses through 3 levels, each containing 2 stages for a total of 6 stages. Each of these stages are sequential, which means they go through stages in order without skipping any stages. Throughout our lives, our moral reasoning becomes more sophisticated and abstract at each stage and as each level progresses. Okay, let's begin with discussing the 3 levels and 6 stages that are part of Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory. The first stage of Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory starts at the pre-conventional level. It typically goes up to age 9, but usually consumes individuals between ages 4 and 10. At this level of Dr. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory, morality is externally controlled. Children tend to accept and believe the rules of authority figures and judge actions by their consequences. And according to Ishnan Joshi, the moral reasoning within this pre-conventional level is based on self-interest and external consequences. Okay? So stage 1 is referred to as obedience and punishment orientation. As Ishnan Joshi explains, children differentiate between what is right and wrong and then influence their decisions based on the punishments they have priorly received. So an example of this may be when a child steals a cookie. They might think, if I take this cookie, then I'll be scolded. So therefore, they won't take the cookie. They'll leave the cookie there, usually based on the level of the punishment they've also received. Ishnan Joshi explains that within the first stage of the pre-conventional level of obedience and punishment, that most behaviors are deemed positive or negative. There's positive consequences, there's negative consequences to your actions and your decisions behind what you're doing at such a young age, which eventually influences you to enter into the second level of Kohlberg's theory, which is stage 2, which is the instrumental relativist orientation, which is self-interest. Within this stage, as Soltani explains, right actions is what satisfies one's own needs or involves for exchange. So basically, it's a focus on what's in it for me, doing things for reward or personal gain. The saying, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, is a very well-suiting statement to fall into this stage itself. An example by McLeod of stage 2 is a child helping to clean up toys because they expect a reward afterwards, or teaching your child that if they take out the trash, they'll receive $5 for doing that every Friday. Some small things like that. Moving on to the second conventional level of Dr. Kohlberg's theory, which is usually around early adolescence. This is where people start to internalize moral standards of valued adult role models. This is really where the morality is about conforming to social rules to maintain order and then gain approval. So this moves us into stage 3, where you get good interpersonal relationships, such as like being a good boy or a nice girl, where you focus on being seen as a good person and you seek approval from others. It has a major emphasis stated by Soltani and Joshi on being nice It's where you're, learning really good social behaviors. So an example of this by McLeod would be, I won't steal because I want people to like me, or would be in a teenager agrees to volunteer because friends view volunteering positively. So there's a positive impact when they make these decisions. There's good things to come from how they're acting within this process. Moving on to stage 4 of Dr. Kohlberg's theory, which is maintaining social order, law and order as we know it to be, or authority and social order. Soltani explains it as focus on obeying laws and respecting authority to maintain a good social order, or obeying laws, respecting authority. McLeod explains this an example of if everyone broke the law, society would collapse, or following traffic laws because it's important to follow safety, or the basic one is stealing is wrong because it's against the law. So you're not going to break laws in this stage. You're going to conform to society. You're going to follow the standards of what's expected of you, and have a good moral compass and a good moral background. The third post-conventional level of Dr. Kohlberg's theory is basically adolescence and beyond, but not everyone reaches this level. Soltani explains that at this stage, people recognize that rules are relative. They develop personal moral principles that may transcend laws, or moral reasoning is based on abstract principles and values. This then proceeds into stage 5, which is the social construct orientation, which is based on individual rights. Within this stage, laws are seen as social contracts. We obey them for the greater good, but they can be exchanged for fairness. An example by McLeod would be, stealing is wrong, but if the law is unjust, we should work to change it. It's questioning basically our moral compass. If we don't agree with something, we may be less likely to do it. We should challenge the authority. We should question the authority. We shouldn't just be so compliant to things that we're doing as a society. Stage 6 would be universal ethical principles. In this, Jashani explains that moral reasoning is based on abstract principles like justice, equality, and human rights, even if they conflict with laws. In this, people may be willing to break laws if they violate these principles. It doesn't mean that they will, but there's a higher chance that they may be willing to do that. An example by McLeod would be, I would break the law to uphold a moral principle like protecting innocent people. So sometimes people view, certain things we do in society as not great. Like if there was a mass shooter out and we were outside and somebody had, their concealed carry, they may protect the citizens around them, even if killing somebody wouldn't be the answer to the protection of the people. So after applying these different stages to your life, how does Kohlberg's theory of moral development apply to our everyday life, right? So the first thing is it creates a different understanding of perspectives, right? So a child in stage 1 might avoid lying simply to avoid punishment. A teenager in stage 3 might tell the truth because they want to be seen as trustworthy by friends. An adult in stage 5 might challenge a law they see as unjust, even if it leads to consequences. Overall, this helps us to be more empathetic people and realistic in our expectations of others. Another thing that this can do in our everyday lives is help with parenting and teaching, right? So parents and educators use an understanding of moral development to guide children's growth. For younger kids, we'll focus often on clear rules and consequences as seen in stages 1 and 2. As children mature, adults help them explore empathy, fairness, and social expectations as seen in stages 3 and 4. And then according to Soltani, Kohlberg's theory helps people's reasoning and analysis to make decisions in ethical situations, paying attention to the level of responsibility and participation, um, which helps them make more moral decisions. We can also see this in workplace ethics, especially professional environments. It really helps our moral reasoning. It helps us to follow rules and company policies, as seen in stage 4. Complying to those things, being empathetic people, following standards, upholding social order, handling conflicts of interest, or whistleblowing when something is wrong to cite rules, like stages 5 and 6. Um, Also, leaders especially benefit from post-conventional reasoning, weighing the greater good and ethical leadership of its staff members. Um, Another thing would be in civic and social engagement. People's level of moral development can affect their approach to things such as like voting or balancing personal rights with societal responsibilities. Um, and this can also create some moral dilemmas as well in daily life. Like everyday decisions often involve small moral choices. An example of this would be like, do you even help a stranger even if it inconveniences you? Or do you speak up against unfair treatment of others? Kohlberg's theory has helped to explain how our reasoning process behind these choices evolves with maturity and experiences. When we're younger, we may not be so willing to, help somebody across the street, but as we get older, when we see someone that's elderly that may be helped, like that may need to be helped, we may be willing to help them, assist them more, because we may think, hey, I hope somebody may do that for me in the future. Um, it's it's a great theory. But anyway, so in summary, Kohlberg's theory helps explain why people make the choices they do and how we can encourage moral growth in ourselves and others. It's a valuable tool for parenting, teaching, leadership, and simply being a more thoughtful and principled person in everyday life. Thank you so much.